Clemson Tigers did not look like the well-oiled machine that we expected versus the Duke Blue Devils Monday night. But is there reason for optimism for the 2023 college football season? Yes. And I'm going to tell you why next on the Locked On Clemson podcast.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Clemson family? Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast, your daily podcast covering your Clemson Tigers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I am a national scout over with the Draft Network, as well as part of the co-host team of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Guys, thank y'all for tapping in, and thank you for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today and every day. You already know. Thank y'all for being my family, but thank you also for being my everydayers, guys. We have a fun show. Really getting into the optimism. Is there reasons to be optimistic? Yes. And I have reasons why. Okay. After that loss, no more emotion. Now it's time for me to step into being an analyst and breaking down what I saw and everything like that. So we're going to get into the defensive standouts. There were three guys. There were a couple guys that played well, but there were three guys that really stood out to me when I was watching this game back. Will on the interior offensive line, Will Putnam and Marcus Tate were outstanding. We're going to talk about those two guys, as well as, for me, the wide receivers are better than what they displayed Monday night, guys. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off. Defensive standouts: Andrew Mukuba, Xavier Thomas, edge rusher, and freshman edge rusher TJ Parker. Let's start with Andrew Mukuba, man, friend of the show, one of our guys who has tapped in with us, and before, and I got a lot of love for, man. But what he was able to do, I talked about it pregame in the live stream. Andrew Mukuba was going to be in the nickel, right? Because they were going to run those kind of three safety looks. With him in the nickel, you have Jalen Phillips and RJ Mickens as the two safeties over the top. And I'm going to just tell you right now, starting with coverage, what he was able to do per PFF. I told you I wanted to wait until their numbers came out. So, you can see snap alignment, all that good stuff. Andrew Mukuba, in man-to-man coverage, went against Jalon Calhoun, the best wide receiver for Duke, and then Samir Hagens, one of their other wide receivers, and he was targeted 9 times. All right, Andrew Mukuba in coverage targeted 9 times. He only allowed 4 catches for 19 yards and only 2 first downs. He allowed 4.8 yards per reception allowed. So he in coverage, he allowed less than 5 yards per reception. Okay, now the bulk of those numbers came against Jalon Calhoun. When he manned up and lined up against Jalon Calhoun, he saw 8 targets. He only allowed 3 receptions, and he allowed 18 yards, 6 yards per reception versus Calhoun, one of their more dynamic and explosive wide receivers. Okay, so Andrew Mukuba was out there balling. You understand me? He was balling out there, guys, and I appreciate everything I saw from him. He was a willing participant in the run game as well, where they would kind of mug up the line of scrimmage and show a lot of bodies and crowd and basically show them that we're not giving you any open running lanes on these situations. And he just did it overall, man. He just did a good job. Andrew Mukuba just did a great job overall to me. A guy, like I said, he was out there making tackles, and you just saw him one-on-one against their best option, their best wide receiver. Not only that, one of the fumbles didn't count, but he was around the football, right? He has a nose for the football. The first one was, the ball was, the player was down, but the ball came out. Andrew Mukuba recovered that. But then when RJ Mickens, they did this a couple times against the run. They walked him down into the box, into the A gap, and he attacked the center or guards, creating some surge and penetration on the interior offensive line. And then, one of those plays, the running back tried to bounce the run outside. There was really no lanes to run through. He ended up fumbling the football, and Andrew Mukuba picked that up and secured that fumble as well. So that's why I'm telling you guys, like, the defense did their job, right? Andrew Mukuba was a stud out there. He did a lot of great things, being around the football, being locked down. He locked down their number 1 wide receiver in the nickel. Listen, my comp for him as an NFL player has always been Jimmy Ward, who played nickel. He played some corner. He played nickel. He played strong and free safety for DeMeco Ryans and the San Francisco 49ers throughout his career. Now he's in Houston doing the same thing. I've said this before on this podcast. I said the exact same thing before, that I've always viewed Andrew Mukuba like almost a carbon copy of Jimmy Ward, a versatile Swiss Army knife in coverage, that type of defender that can blitz and be a +1 in the run game. Now, let's kick it over to Xavier Thomas. Guys, Xavier Thomas, you look at what he did as a pass rusher. Now, we did not get any sacks on, I might call him Duke Riley Leonard. We didn't get any sacks on him, but Xavier Thomas was the best pass rusher on the field, basically for the team. He had 6 hurries last night. He hurried the quarterback 6 times, and that matchup between him and the offensive lineman from Duke, Jake Hornibrook, who I can tell you right now, Jake Hornibrook, for a PFF grade, for those who really value the grades, he in pass protection, Jake Hornibrook, he had 65 total snaps at right tackle. 39, almost 40 of those were in passing situations. His pass blocking grade was a 46.6. He allowed 6 pressures, 6 hurries, and all of those came from our guy, Xavier Thomas. The XT was a menace coming off the edge. You saw him be able to win the outside arc and be able to protect the outside shade a lot. The first step quickness, everything. Now, what I wanted to see, I think, for me, is just, like I always say, pressures and hurries are sacks that aren't completed. And I wanted to see him get back there and complete. And the crazy thing about it was a couple times I saw when I was watching the game that he was right there. He was right there. And Riley Leonard, timing, just to feel in the pocket, he got the ball out right before XT could get his hand on his arm or his shoulder to either strip sack him or just, knock his arm down, bring him to the ground, just get a sack, period. But he got into the backfield. Jake Hornibrook really didn't have a whole ton of answers unless he was able to quick set him and things like that. That's where I want to see that evaluate that development for XT, is when guys quick set you like that, then you just got to use your hands and work back inside. All right. It's like legitimately just hand fighting. A guy want to jump set you, quick set you, and take the, what do you call, taking the air out of the pass rush set, right? Taking the wind out of your sails, taking the wind out of the pass rush set. If he wants to do that and he jumps out there to meet you, then boom, you work back inside, because now he's just giving you the inside leverage. So I want to see him develop those inside counters and the inside handwork. But overall, he was a standout. He was a stud. And I got to give love to the young man, T.J. Parker. This young man also himself, he had a QB hit. He had 3 pressures and hurries in this game on Monday night. But he also looked very fluid, dropping off into coverage when they want to go do some fire zone stuff and drop a defensive end off to try and, get into the quick game passing lanes. And he did a good job of that. He looked fluid in space. Of course, you don't want him. What was it? Harold Perkins, the D end or the linebacker hybrid at LSU that they played off ball instead of letting him rush. You don't want that type of situation, but you do want this young man to be in a position where he can do multiple things for your defense. And like I said, these three young men came to play and they balled out, man. You know what I mean? They made impact plays, or whether it was turnovers, getting to the quarterback, making the quarterback uncomfortable. And truly, Riley Leonard did not have a good game. He did not have a good game. Cade Klubnik got past him. For the most part, you're talking about the top passer, the top rusher, and top receiver. All of those guys were Clemson guys. Why is that? Because Clemson beat themselves and Duke did not. I'm being honest here. Shout out to Duke. Duke was a very tough opponent, but like I said, the tape don't lie. Like, Clemson beat themselves, but at the same time, that's also why I'm optimistic, because it wasn't like they got destroyed and bodied like Florida State did to LSU. That wasn't the case. Clemson made big boneheaded mistakes that cost them points. I believe it was 20 points that they left on the field. 2 fumbles inside the 5, inside the 4 that took away potential touchdowns. A blocked field goal, you know what I mean? And then a shank field goal. So that's what? 6, 14, that's 20. That's 20 points. That is 20 points. All right. So, yes, Duke got the late touchdown, but that's because the game was already over. You get those scores and you get on and you jump on top of Duke on the scoreboard, Now you're making them play from behind, and they didn't really look that comfortable playing with a lead. So again, that's another reason why I am optimistic. But you want to know why? What else made me optimistic? Couple guys on the offensive line, Will Putnam, Marcus Tate, they did what I needed them to do. Stop Dwayne Carter. So why am I optimistic based off of their performance? I'm going to tell you why next on the Locked On Clemson podcast. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories for your vehicle, head over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, then you can be sure that the next time you need something and need a part for your car, every part you need fits the first time around. You just need to add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game, baby, when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. The offensive lineman that stood out in this game was Will Putnam, your center, and your left guard, Marcus Tate. Two guys that I believe were going to have two of the biggest assignments in this game whenever they saw number 90, Dwayne Carter, one of the most disruptive interior defensive linemen, not just in the ACC, but in the country. So let's look at what the numbers say. Because you guys, we've been talking about the numbers the whole time. So let's look at what the numbers say. Dwayne Carter, right? He did have a sack. He had a sack, but he didn't have anything else outside of that. 31 pass rush reps, only one sack. He didn't have any hurries, any pressures, no QB hits, none of that, right? And then when you look at the blocking aspect of things, and we know what happened in the run game, right? We know what happened in the run game. Dwayne Carter couldn't help them stop the run as we ran over 200 yards, right? So, but let's look at the blocking. Let's look at the stuff here again. I'm gonna give you guys these PFF grades because I know some people really value them or whatever. I value more of the numbers in terms of sacks, hits, hurries, pressures, things of that nature. But the two, when you look at what we saw, right? Marcus Tate, pass blocking grade, 82.7. Will Putnam, pass blocking grade, 85.3. Both of those guys will rock solid. They were the foundation of this offensive line, right? But you look at everything else. A lot of the pressures and stuff came from the tackles. Tristan Lay struggled a little bit, but he rebounded, but he struggled. He had 4 pressures allowed, a hurry, 1 hit and two sacks, 1 QB hit and 2 sacks. Then you look at Blake Miller, a guy that I was always concerned about because of his body type, his frame, and just the lack of athleticism and lateral agility that I saw on Tate when I watched him over the summer. And he allowed 6 pressures, 6 hurries, no sacks, no QB hits, but he was part of the reason why Cade didn't feel comfortable at times as well. So when I'm sitting here and I'm like, all right, watching this interior offensive line, these guys I think they're going to get better, right? And when you have a center like Will Putnam, that's going to also help another guy who struggled, and that was where is he? I forgot the other interior offensive lineman. Walker Parks, the right guard. He struggled. He allowed 4 pressures, 4 hurries. He, so just to give for some context, Blake Miller had a pass blocking grade per PFF 47.5. Walker Parks had a 42.2. Tristan Lay ended up rebounding with a 70.4. Right. But when you look at the right side of the offensive line, that's where 10 pressures, 10 hurries came from in this game. So here's what we can do. Here's how you figure why I'm optimistic, right? When your interior offensive lineman can handle one-on-one duties against a talented interior defensive front, that gives you a lot of reason to be optimistic. For one, because you hope that Tristan Lay now, that was his first start, his first action of college football at tackle full time. So what does it say? he gets his footing and he rebounds next week and the next couple weeks and he plays better, right? He plays rock solid. Then Marcus Tate and Will Putnam are able to go one-on-one. What that allows you to do is if they want to attack Walker Parks going forward, then you allow, you know what I'm saying, you kind of slide protection, okay? And you allow Will Putnam to be his bumper to help him out and tell Walker Parks, you protect your right hand. Protect your right hand and your right hip. I got you on the backside. I got you on the left, right? And I'm gonna be a bumper, like bumper crawls, baby. My elbow's gonna be ready. Like we're like this is hockey. I'm trying to shock a guy into the railing, man. I'm trying to really throw him into the glass. I'm gonna help you out, right? And then as well as giving some help to Blake Miller. This is a fixable situation to me, but I'm gonna also give you one other thing. Maybe you start calling Sadler along with Tristan Lay, and you start one of those guys. You figure out who, they both played very well and performed very well in camp. Maybe you start one at left tackle, you start the other one at right tackle. Maybe Blake just isn't the guy for the job. And those are the tough decisions that Dabo has to make as a head coach. But you can't be the head ball coach. You can't be laughing and joking and everything else and then run away and not run away, but not handle those difficult, tough situations. And I believe that he can, but it's all about, I'm going to tell you something, guys. Coaches have egos. So it's all about him not allowing his ego, saying that, well, we made the wrong decision. So listen, it happens, man. You if you don't adapt, I said this in the comments, if you don't adapt, you die. Like, so you gotta make a change. And if you gotta make a change and put put the other tools, he's 6'6", 300-pound guy that can actually move much better than Blake Miller, then you do that. And it's no slight to Blake, but you can't run into Florida State with him struggling to protect the arc. And if he has to quick set or he has to overextend to protect the outside shoulder, that then opens up inside counters. So that's kind of how I look at it. I'm optimistic because there's ways to fix this offensive line, and on the right side especially. Like I said, Tristan Lay struggled, especially early, but I felt like he settled down halfway through that game, and he played much better and everything. And like I said, I'll have I'm waiting on the all 22 to come through. And once I do that, I'll have it up on the Patreon. And I'll kind of break down some tape, things like that for you guys. And I want you guys to be able to see what I see. I want you guys to learn, so understand, like, hey, we're not going to be super emotional here. We're not going to think the season's over, none of that stuff, because that gets us nowhere, okay? It gets us nowhere. TCU was in close game after close game last year, guys, and that's the Big 12. It's the Big 12. They don't play defense over there. You know what I mean? So they were in close game actually, matter of fact, for those who didn't follow the college football playoff and championship week last year, TCU lost the Big 12 championship to Kansas State. And the committee still gave them the nod to go to the college football playoffs. Max Duggan wasn't even the starter. It was Chad Morris, I think is his name. Morris was the starter. He got hurt in the first game. I think it was against Colorado, if I'm not mistaken. He got hurt in that game. And then Max Duggan came off the bench. And it didn't look pretty at first. And at times it didn't look pretty throughout the season. But they still got the benefit of the doubt. Here's another reason to be optimistic when it comes down to what we saw Monday and how it can get better, and we may not see that again all season. Cincinnati 2 years ago, Desmond Ridder, Alec Pierce, Majay Sanders, all those guys, Luke Fickell, they went to the college football playoffs from the AAC. So I'm not trying to be emotional and think the season's over. I'm a football analyst. I break down tape. I look at coverages. I do all those things. I cannot operate like that. And I love you guys, so I don't want you to do it either. All right. So that we're here. We're here. All right. We're here. But another reason why I am optimistic, the wide receivers, I do not believe that they are as bad as they looked, Monday night. I think that they are better than that. And I'm going to tell you why next on the Locked On Clemson podcast. The wide receiver for your 2023 Clemson Football Tigers are better than what we saw versus the Duke Blue Devils. Even to a point where Antonio Williams, again, was the final, he was the leading receiver, I believe, if I remember, if I look at the numbers again, he was the leading receiver for the game. I think, yeah, he was. He was targeted 11 times. He had 7 receptions for 56 yards. He had a nice catch on I think it was an over route. That got him down into the low red zone on one of the drives right before they fumbled. I think that was the one where that was a drive where the first fumble, where Cade and he tried to do the zone read into the bench point with I think Will Shipley, poor ball handling and miscommunication between the two, and that's when Duke got the first fumble. And then defense got to stop and all that. But on that drive, Cade was 3 for 3. And one of the bigger plays on that drive in the passing game was to Antonio Williams on the right sideline. So when I look at it, man, I think Antonio Williams is a good young wide receiver. I watched his tape, over the summer. I watched how he stemmed his routes. He knows how to get open, and he can get open, especially against man-to-man coverage, right? And even on the pass where he dropped, he was open. I would say that Cade didn't lead him to the sideline and throw the ball away from the defender. You know what I mean? He kind of put the ball right on him, and it kind of stopped him. When you're running those outbreakers and those out routes, you want to lead the receiver to the sideline, away from the defender. Throw him. It's basically essentially throwing them open. Throw with anticipation. I didn't see that from Cade, but again, young player, his first start of the 2023 season, a lot of hype and everything, and the expectations, were just a little bit too big for the team. But I think Cole Turner's better than what we saw. And the thing I kept going back to is, yes, they're going to play too high and everything, so they want to take away the deep game. I understand working the underneath, but I want to see not the screens and all that stuff, but get these guys on mesh concept, get these guys on slants, on end breakers, right? The comeback routes. And even with Bo Collins, I think he played solid for the targets he received, right? He did have one that I was very frustrated with. It was a little high by Cade, but you're 6'3", you know what I'm saying? You're a big body receiver. Go up and get that. You know what I mean? He didn't come down with that football, but he was able to, against off coverage and soft coverage, he's able to create separation himself. But here's why I think things could, I think I said this before, I would love to see Bo Collins as not a full-time slot, but those more open spread concepts where you have 3 to 4 wide receivers. I would like to see, especially four options. I would like to see him in the slot, kind of like what we call a power slot, big slot. Let him be a power forward against these smaller 5'10", 5'11" nickels. Let them post these guys up and things of that nature. But also, guys, not just the wide receivers, the tight ends. And this is something Garrett Riley, I know some people are blaming Dabo Swinney for the offense and everything. Hey, listen, I can't speak on that, all right? I can't say if Dabo has tried to handicap or handcuff, Garrett Riley as a play caller, or if he did it to Tony Elliott, if he did it to Streeter or anybody else like that. I just know that offense last year was god awful. And it looked different. Route concept, spacing, everything looked different this year. Streeter's not getting off the hook. He called a terrible offense last year in 2022. But the one thing that Garrett Riley has to do better with is dialing up plays directly for the tight end. Last year, his big 6'7", 260-pound tight end Jared Wiley over at TCU, he only had 29 targets. He caught 24 of them. He had an 83% completion percentage in his direction in terms of his reception percentage for only 246 yards, but he averaged over 10 yards a catch, man. And that's work in the middle of the field, the over routes, the crossers, things of that nature. And listen, guys, go back to the playoff game when TCU faced Michigan, right? When Michigan started sending pressure at Max, what did Garrett Riley do? I just thought about that. What did he do? He went to mesh. He went to mesh concept. You want to play cover zero? You want to play man-to-man across the board? All right, tell you that's a man beater. Mesh concept is a man-to-man beater, right? It's to defeat man-to-man coverage. So what do you do? Run that. And if you felt like the receivers were struggling to get open last night, when you have a guy that is in Cole Turner, who's a fast, explosive receiver, you get him on a horizontal plane, right? Running full speed in one direction. And you get the ball to him in stride. Now he turns up the opposite sideline with that long stride, with his long speed, right? Antonio Williams, same thing. Bo Collins. And then you allow Big Adam Randall to be big, to be physical. I'm going to tell you a guy that, if anything, I want to see him use like is A.J. Brown. Use them like A.J. Brown, man. So I just look at this from an aspect of the reason to be optimistic is that, truthfully, guys, Jake Brittany-Stool, like I said, when it's going back to the situation with the tight end, I want to see Garrett Riley get the tight ends involved. Get Brittany-Stool involved. Get him involved. The seam routes, the skinny post from the inline tight end position. right? The corner routes, all of it, sit downs, the button hooks, finding a soft spot in the zone in the middle of the field and being the big body target that he is, 6'6", 230. Come on, man. It's there. It's there. It's there. So, no, this wide receiver core, I've seen in the tweets of people, they can't separate, stuff like that. But I watched Antonio Williams separate a good bit last year as a true freshman. Do I think that he's not going to be able to separate this year? No, I do think he can separate. He can. I watched Cole Turner win vertically down the field. Come on, man. What are we talking about here? Huh? I watched Bo Collins get open. And you know what I'm saying? Go back to the opener last year against was it Georgia Tech? I think he dropped 2 of DJU's touchdowns, but he was able to get over the top, and DJU put it up, put the ball where he can get it. Come on, man. I'm just, guys, listen, like I told you, I'm gonna be here all season, and I'm gonna make sure that you guys are not losing your minds. All right. I'm gonna do my best to help you with that, because I don't want to see you do it. At the end of the day, this team, these receivers, these tight ends are better than what we saw on display week 1. I mean, heck, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver in all of college football. He had 2 catches for 18 yards. Ohio State has a terrible quarterback situation right now. They don't know who's QB1. We do. We know it's Cade Klubnik. I'm not going to hit there and say Cade is not the answer. I don't operate like that. But you guys blame DJU last year, and then now people are starting to blame Cade. Let's allow young players to develop. Let's just do that. It's a rule of thumb. Allow young players to develop. Give them time. A couple games. It's the start of the season with a really tough opponent, a divisional opponent, a conference, a league opponent. Yeah, I'm just saying. Practice patience. All right, don't be like, what I'm saying. Like sports fans, football, especially football fans. We have as a community, we have a tendency to want fast food all the time, to the point where someone says, I want to make steak, and you don't want it homemade. You want to throw it in the microwave and eat it like that. If you eat steak out of the microwave, you're a psychopath. Okay? You're a psycho. And what is that for in this situation? If you don't believe in player development, you're a psychopath. I'm just going to be honest with y'all, all right? So, listen, at the end of the day, man, there is reason to be optimistic, and the receivers are better than what we thought and what we saw. Will Putnam, Marcus Tate, even Tristan Lay, those guys played good football for the most part, and especially Marcus Tate and Will Putnam. They were rock solid. They were the foundation. And the defensive standouts, man, Andrew Mukuba, TJ Parker, Xavier Thomas, those guys came to play, guys. But that is the show for today. I wanted to bring you some good news. I talked about all the bad stuff on yesterday, right after the game and all that stuff, but I wanted to bring some reasons to be optimistic. And yeah, man, it's just how I feel. This is not over. This 2023 season is not over. They're not winning 3 games. They're winning more than that. They're going to be competitive. They're going to play much, much better. Again, don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't fumble 2 times inside the 5 and you win this football game. Don't shank, don't block, not block explosive DB coming off the edge versus on a field on your freshman kicker's field goal, his first field goal of his career, and don't shank the next one, bruh. Like, come on, gun. Don't shank the next one. But at the end of the day, guys, that's just what it is, man. There's reasons to be optimistic. So at the end of the day, hold on. Let's get through these next 2 weeks. Charleston Southern with Florida Atlantic. Let's get through these next 2 weeks, and then we get prepared to talk about that juggernaut that is the Florida State Seminoles. But guys, thank y'all for making Locked On Clemson your first listen today and every day, Monday through Friday. Thank you for being my family, and also thank you guys so much for being my everydayers. Let's continue to get the YouTube channel up to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're over 700 now. Appreciate you guys for everybody. Remember, I told you FTA for the algorithm. Comment, holler at your boy. Thank you guys for all of that. Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. In terms of Twitter, you can find and follow me there at DP_NFL. Talk to me, because I do talk back. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Go Tigers.